Our story begins in 1914 on Greasy Ridge, about a 30-minute drive from Ironton. A man named John Clary was going to his neighbor's house to borrow a bridle. What he was about to find was horrific. John stumbled upon the remains of his neighbor, Bob Massey, whose head had been beaten in. He immediately went to get help. When authorities arrived, they found the bodies of his mother, Nancy Massey, and his sister, Mary Massey. All three were brutally murdered. Nancy had been beaten in the same way Bob was, while Mary's hands had been tied behind her back, and her head was almost completely decapitated from her body. The only suspect at this time was their farmhand, who had worked for them for years, Harley Beard. They came to the conclusion that Harley was the one who committed this horrible crime. Harley had fled to where he grew up, Chicago. He caught a train and rode it the whole way there. After learning about this, Sheriff Sloan of the Lawrence County Sheriff's Department was on the case. The sheriff was in contact with multiple police stations and law enforcement agencies to determine where Harley had fled to. Eventually, he caught up with him. He found Harley hiding in his sister's house while she was completely unaware of what had happened. Sheriff Sloan convinced Harley to tell him what happened as long as his sister didn't find out. With that, Harley confessed to Sheriff Sloan and told his story. The sheriff arrested Harley and brought him back to Lawrence County where the murders began. As he brought him back, hordes of people, enraged at what had happened, stormed the streets and waited to see the sheriff bring Harley back in his car. However, the sheriff had to wait until the mob had died down before he could bring him into town. Harley was in prison, and his trial was soon after. He pled guilty to first-degree murder, and it was determined that the motivation for this was robbery. Harley was sentenced to death by electric chair and was executed on December 4th, 1914, for the horrific and heinous crimes and murder of Bob, Mary, and Nancy Massey. May their souls rest in peace.